Hopefully that should come through now. All right, so to jump back on, let me just, I'm going to do a quick recap just to make sure that those of you who've covered just a few slides. I'm going to do a quick recap just to make sure that those of you who have just jumped on can be up to speed with where we're at. All right, so hopefully you can see my screen now, everyone, and that you've got audio coming through as well. All right, and if that has changed anything for you, then hopefully that's working now. All right. Hi. All right. Okay, so let me just take these slides back for a second. All right, so at the very start of the presentation, we looked at why you would want to consider your physical well-being. Why is this important to you? And I liken this for the people that I work with in my programs and for the people that I coach and the people that I deliver personal training services to, that it's the difference between having a high-performance vehicle to run through life with and having an old run-down bomb that is a bit clunky and it stop-starts. And let's face it, when you go out in the morning and you go to start your car in the morning, you want your engine to start. You don't want it to be like a clunky old vehicle that is a little bit untrustworthy, that causes a little bit of stress because it's untrustworthy. And let's face it, the ride in an old clunky vehicle that's not serviced, that doesn't have very good brakes, and where the engine doesn't run very well is not such an enjoyable ride. Versus the high performance vehicle where it is serviced regularly, where we put good fuel into the vehicle, where we put it under cover and we maintain the vehicle to the very best of our ability. The ride within this high performance vehicle is much, much smoother. It's much more enjoyable. We can have a lot more fun in it and it can take us more places. We can go further because we trust the vehicle. We know that it will not break down and we know that it will start every morning when we go to get in it. So you want to consider your physical well-being because your body is hopefully like a high-performance vehicle, or at least that's what we want it to be like. We want our body to be able to carry us places. We want to be able to go places in our life and do what it is that we want or that we value in our life. And we don't want to have the risk of our body breaking down on us. We don't want that kind of stress. We want to be able to trust our body to know that it will carry us wherever we want. And we want to be able to have a good time in our body. We want to be able to enjoy the ride. And we want to be able to have some fun. So that's why our physical well-being is so important, because your body is your vehicle that you run through life with. Your body is also your temple. So unlike a vehicle, a car, a motor vehicle, we can get out of the motor vehicle and we can step out of that environment. However, your own physical body, you can't do that quite so easily. Your body is your temple and it's your home and it goes with you everywhere. So if your body's not feeling very good, if you wake up feeling a bit blur and a bit sluggish and a little bit lethargic, then you've got to deal with that for the whole day or until you can find some time to be able to get some rest and recovery, or until you can be able to fix that reason that it's feeling a bit sluggish or a bit fatigued. So it's really important for you, I can only assume, that to know that your body is feeling healthy, feeling well, that it has the energy levels within it is really important to you, because you can't escape from it. You can't get away from it. Not only can you not escape from it, but it also affects the people around you as well. You know what it's like when you start the day feeling a bit sluggish, or perhaps you wake up with a toothache, let's just say, for example. Your interactions with people on that day are not as enjoyable. You perhaps are a little bit grumpy, and let's face it, we can't blame you. I certainly would be waking up with a toothache. I remember a time when I did wake up with a toothache, and I certainly wasn't the most pleasant of people to be around. So perhaps we're a little bit grumpy, we're a little bit short with people, we're a bit agitated. We don't smile as much, we're not as much fun to be around, our energy levels aren't as up, and we withdraw a little bit. But within ourselves, our focus isn't as good. We can't give as much of our energy to the things that we want to be able to do in that day. And all we can focus on is trying to get our tooth fixed. So if we had something important to do in that day, then it would be a bit unfortunate, because our ability to give our best would be a little bit limited. And it's the same for your health and your well-being. So The approach that I like to take with health and well-being is a preventative approach, and that's why we call it wellness. Wellness is all about taking a preventative approach to your health and well-being rather than waiting until you get sick to fix it. We like to do whatever we can to prevent this sickness from coming upon us. And generally speaking, the research shows that good exercise or physical activity, looking after nutrition, and taking good rest and recovery are three of the main activities that you can do to ensure that your body stays healthy and that you have a pleasant home to reside within. But I'm kind of preaching to the converted. I'm kind of preaching to the people. I know that you know this stuff. I know that you appreciate how important it is for you to look after your body so that you can achieve your personal best. And a lot of the people that I work with within my business and within the programs that I run, I like to classify them all as high achievers, because that's exactly what you are. You understand that your body is your vehicle. You understand that in order for you to perform at your peak on a daily basis is about taking care of your health and your well-being. However, it is this mindset of wanting to achieve your personal best that can sometimes be the biggest factor that trips you up. So I like to say to the people that I work with, particularly the women actually, that this mindset, the high achiever mindset, is the source of your greatest strength, but is also the source of your greatest challenge as well. The reason that it's the source of your greatest challenge is because it can put you and it can put yourself under a lot of pressure or a lot of stress. So there is a certain point where it can be a bit of pressure, and a bit of pressure is actually a good thing. From time to time, to have a deadline or to have a thing where you're working towards, say, a goal or a focus that you're working towards, is actually a really resourceful thing, because it forces us, or encourages us rather, to perform. However, there is a certain point where that pressure can tip us over the edge. And for many of the women that I work with, it's when this pressure tips us over the edge that it becomes a real problem. And this is where it creates stress within the body. Now, stress is a problem because it creates a number of health and well-being issues within the body. It comes about because we generally tend to put ourselves, or we tend to set ourselves up with a lot of rules. So when we have the mindset of, a lot of the women that I work with as high achievers, they tend to put a lot of rules in place. So there's things that they say that they have to do in the day, and there are non-negotiables of things that they know that have to get done. I wonder if you can relate to this yourself. So are you someone who says to yourself at the start of every day that I've got to get X, Y, and Z done, and it's a non-negotiable, and I won't be happy until I get it done? Or perhaps at the start of the week, particularly around your health and your well-being, you set yourself up by saying, I'm going to exercise 5 times a week, and I'll be happy when I get that done. All of these things, all of this processing, all of this mindset is actually you're setting yourself up with rules. Now, like I said, this can be really resourceful. It gives you a structure or a guideline of what you need to do in your week or in your day to get things done. It becomes a problem when sometimes we have a distraction or we have something get thrown into our day. Perhaps the children need picking up from school early, perhaps work gets a little bit crazy, or we get called into work early. Perhaps we have an emergency in our family, something that is unforeseen, something that we actually can't control gets thrown into the mix, and we have no flexibility around that rule. We don't allow ourselves to say, it's okay, this happened, I didn't expect it to happen, and I'm just going to readjust. If you're not allowing yourself the flexibility of readjusting your rules, then for you in your head, it can be that you've now broken your rule. You've broken your plan, and now your plan is gone to bits. You've fallen off the bandwagon, and now it's a lost cause. So perhaps for that day when you've had that single distraction and it's thrown you totally off course, if you're someone who doesn't have much flexibility, you'll find yourself not being able to adjust your rules, to adjust your plan, and that entire day will be a write-off. When that entire day is a write-off, you'll also find yourself beating yourself up about it, feeling a little bit guilty for the fact that you actually weren't able to stick to your rules, getting yourself a little bit frustrated, or perhaps experiencing anger as an emotion within you. You might feel disappointment, or you might even get depressed. These emotions are not good for our health and our well-being. They create all sorts of neurotransmitters and hormonal changes to occur within the body. And it's been found that these kind of hormonal changes and neurotransmitters being emitted into the body can create injury, disease, and poor health within the body. It can cause us to get sick. It can cause things like cancer. It can cause niggling pains and aches in the body. A whole multitude of health risks that can be created as a result of experiencing physical, mental, and emotional stress. The other thing that the high achievers that I work with often find is that they're motivated by pain. So often they will motivate themselves or kick themselves into gear when they're experiencing something that they don't like. For example, they're experiencing that their clothes are fitting too tightly, that they're puffing at the top of the stairs, that they're experiencing poor energy levels, that they're noticing themselves feeling quite a lack of confidence within themselves, that they don't want to go out and socialize with friends because they're just feeling a bit icky about themselves. All of these things, all of these experiences are pains. They're negative emotional experiences or negative experiences that we don't like to experience. But on the flip side, they do have a benefit because they kick us into action. They force us to do something. So by forcing us to do something, they make us take action. And in that case, they're kind of resourceful. But they're resourceful in a negative way because we first need to experience the pain before we get the action taking, rather than experiencing the action taking because of what we want to achieve more of. So for example, we want to achieve greater fitness and greater vitality. So we're already feeling good about ourselves. We acknowledge ourselves for where we're at the moment, and now we want it to be even better. So at the moment I can walk 2Ks, I'm happy with that. I acknowledge myself for that because there are people in the world who can't walk 2Ks. So I come from a place of being accepting of my abilities, but now I want to be able to walk 3Ks, or now I want to be able to jog 2Ks, or now I want to be able to fit into clothes that are a little bit, or are a size smaller, for example. So I accept myself for where I'm at the size X. Now I want to be a size smaller, but it's not about beating yourself up for where you're not. It's about accepting yourself for where you are. And that's when you use pleasure as your motivation rather than the pain. Now, your reason for doing that, like I said, the pain, similar to the stress, can create negative emotions within us. And this, again, affects our hormone profile, our neurotransmitters being released in our body, and just generally our overall quality of life. If we're beating ourselves up for where we're not, then we're generally experiencing a poorer quality of life than where we would if we were accepting ourselves for where we are at. The other thing that I find that the high achievers tend to experience before they go through a bit of a transition and a transformation is they downplay their successes. So perhaps they have had a really good week. They've exercised 5 times in the week, which was their plan, and they get to the end of the week, they've had those 5 sessions, and they'll find any excuse under the sun to downplay their success. It might be that one of those sessions was in fact just a 30-minute session rather than a 60-minute session like they planned. And they'll focus on that 30-minute session and downplay the fact that they experienced 5 sessions in the week rather than actually just rewarding themselves for exercising 5 times a week. They're very hard on themselves. They have very high expectations of themselves, and as a result of that, they often have high expectations of others. Again, this creates stress in the body because, again, it comes back to a huge number of rules and expectations within ourselves and not a lot of flexibility. I've already mentioned the emotional stress that this creates. Having such a high expectation of ourselves can also hold us back in our own relationships with others because we have such high expectations of ourselves, we can often find ourselves not believing that we're quite good enough. And when we believe that we're not quite good enough, we'll tell ourselves that we're not good enough for other people either. And this will hold us back in the quality of our relationships with others. It doesn't mean that you don't have relationships with other people. It just simply means that perhaps those relationships aren't as fruitful as they could be because we don't give ourselves 100% to the relationships with other people for fear of not being enough. Again, I've already mentioned the hormones being disrupted. This can have a knock-on effect to our sleep quality. If you're not a very good sleeper, it can be due to this stress of the high achiever. And when we lack sleep, we also find ourselves craving sugar, and this can have a knock-on effect to dis-ease in the body and injury. And there is so much more that this could affect within the body, but I wonder, does this resonate with any of you that is on the call at the moment? Is this any of these things? Do you find that you experience these sometimes, all the time? Is this something that you would experience as a result of wanting to create the very best health and fitness for yourself, for wanting to treat your body like a high performance vehicle? And in the result of doing so, you put yourself under quite a bit of pressure, which can sometimes tip over to stress. So just write in the chat box, let me know, is this something that resonates with you, yes or no? All right, and as you're typing in, I can see these comments coming in, which is great. Thank you for talking to me. So some of you are saying yes, some of you are saying yes, sometimes more than others, and I can truly appreciate that. I get that. So I know I've talked a lot about the challenges and the sort of negativity surrounding this, this high achiever syndrome, if you like, of the need to put yourself under a lot of pressure. But I want to remind you that this is also a strategy that drives you. It's a strategy that has encouraged you to be where you're at today. It's it's something that has allowed you to achieve the success that you have achieved in your life, albeit not often to the level that you really want to achieve it at. So one of the things, so it's not about getting rid of that high achiever mindset. It's about being able to have the ability to push yourself at times, but also at times be able to give yourself a break, be able to be kind to yourself at times so that you know when it is to put your foot on the accelerator and also when it is to back off. And the first principle, or the first mindset principle that's really important to take on board, is to understand that in fact nobody is perfect, that the strive for perfection, and I'm not saying that we're all perfectionists on the call, but I'm saying that there is an element of striving to be your very best. But sometimes we have to understand that we're all human, that we all have flaws. And the reason that I have the picture of the Colosseum on the screen right now is because the Colosseum is actually one of the 7 wonders of the world. The Colosseum is one of the most remarkable archaeological ancient buildings that we still have standing in today's history. I'm not sure if any of you have been to visit the Colosseum. I have been lucky enough to go there myself, and it's purely amazing, the expanse of this building, how big it is, how much work went into it, how it's still standing after such a long period of time, and the kind of history that is associated with it, to know what sort of activities took place and how these activities, albeit they're similar to the Olympics, but they're so very far away from what it is that we experience in today's society. But what is amazing about the Colosseum is that even though it is one of the 7 wonders of the world, it doesn't come without its own flaws. It doesn't come without its own cracks in the walls. It doesn't come without its own missing bits and pieces of walls. I mean, half of it is fallen down, for example, and yet we still remark at it. We still believe it is one of the most beautiful archaeological and architectural buildings that we have in our history. So we don't have to be perfect to be purely amazing. And it's the same for ourselves. We can be proud of ourselves, we can be amazed by ourselves, and other people can be amazed by us with our warts and all. So in your strive to be your very best, it's about accepting that there are some things, there are some cracks in our facade that are going to show through. And actually, this makes us more complete. This makes us more whole. This makes us more human, for example. And this makes us who we are. So it's accepting these and not trying to hide them and not trying to distract ourselves from them, but accept ourselves for who we are. So your mindset around this approach is absolutely key. What you believe, what you tell yourself, what you value on a daily basis is all going to set you up to give you this mindset of acceptance for yourself. So it was Einstein who said that you can't solve your problem of today with the thinking that created the problem of today. So if you're experiencing a problem within your health and your well-being, if you're not getting the consistency that you want, if you're not getting the results that you want, if you're finding yourself trying but not getting the results, then it's a shift in your mindset, and not necessarily a big shift. It could just be a 1-degree shift right here and now that will give you a very different result at the end of your journey. I'm not sure if you've ever looked at a compass and you've used a compass to navigate your way through a certain place. I remember a time when myself and my husband went orienteering and got lost for a little bit. But a 1-degree shift in your current trajectory will put you in a very different place at the end of your journey. So it doesn't need to be a big shift right now. It's just the smallest of shifts, the smallest of differences in what you tell yourself, in what you value, in what you believe right now that will give you a very different result, which is ultimately what you're looking for. So my first tip, and the first thing that we share on the program that I deliver, the Vitality Fit program over the 7 weeks, is the very first thing that we look at is setting your goals. Often I find that the women that come into my program, they're actually not very clear on the goals that they want to set for themselves. They have a general idea of what they want to achieve. They want to lose weight, they want to get fitter, they want to feel better within themselves, they want to improve their energy levels. But they couldn't say specifically exactly what it is that they want to achieve. They couldn't put a timeline on it. They wouldn't, if I asked them the question, they wouldn't be able to answer the question of how will you know when you've achieved your goal? And it's not just a feeling, it is an actual set result. So for example, to achieve the feeling of feeling fitter, it's great to set a goal around a distance or a time or a heart rate intensity that you would like to be able to get to and achieve it successfully. So maybe it's to go on a 60-minute walk without having to stop. Maybe it's to go on a 5-minute jog without having to stop. Maybe it's being able to climb a certain flight of stairs without having to stop halfway to catch your breath. Maybe it's doing 10,000 steps in a day. Maybe it's doing a 10K run without stopping. Whatever it is, it's actually setting a very clear benchmark so that you know when you're successful, so that you can appreciate and celebrate your successes. Because the challenge with not setting goals is that we can continue to push the benchmarks out. We continue to push the goalposts out, which means that we never have an opportunity to celebrate our success, which means we never get the reward that we're looking for. It's the reward that is the reason that we set ourselves up on this journey in the first place, the opportunity to celebrate. So we need to know when it is to celebrate. So my first tip and the first thing that we do on a program that I run is that we get very, very clear on the goals that the women want to achieve around their health and their fitness, and also around other areas of their life. And I encourage them to set daily, weekly, and monthly goals throughout the process of the 7-week program. I also want to reiterate that it's not just about setting the goals, it's about believing that you can achieve them. But that is an entirely different conversation, and one that I'll have to do on a different webinar. So the next thing that we look at throughout the course is being able to recognise your accomplishments. I like to relate this to choice. So, for example, if you've got a value of looking after family, if family is really important to you, and it's one of your number one values, and you've decided that you would like to set yourself up on a health and fitness journey for 2015, and you would like to exercise 5 times a week, and you would like to cook all your food fresh, and you would like to make sure that you meditate at least once a week. Now, all of these behaviours are going to be things that take up some of your time, and some of this time is going to be time that you would have normally spent with your family. So there sometimes comes a conflict in the process of achieving this goal around your health and fitness. On one hand, you've got the value of family. You've got the family of looking after your family, of taking care of your family, of spending time with your family, of cooking for your family, making sure that everyone has everything they need for school, everything that they need for their day, that they're all set up. And on the other hand, you've got your own activities that you want to do for your own health and fitness. So some of you on the call can very much relate to this as an experience that you'll be having right now. And some of you will experience this in your past, because some of you have got family that have grown up, that have left the nest, and you don't need to look after them quite so much anymore. But you might have other family that you need to look after. So on one hand, you've got your own health and fitness goals. On the other hand, you've got your family values. And when it comes time to exercise, the phone rings and one of your family members says, I need your help, or I need you for something, or I need you to come pick me up. What do? Do you go and exercise anyway and say to them, I'll come pick you up later, or I'll come and help you later in an hour's time, or whatever it is? Or do your family values kick in, bearing in mind that these family values are something that you've had for a long, long time? In fact, you've grown up with them. So your natural instinct will actually be to go and tend to your family. And this is where a lot of women trip up, particularly mums in the room. A lot of them get really conflicted with the fact that I've got these health and fitness things that I want to do, but I've also got these very strong family values pulling me. What do I do? Well, this is where I'm going to come back to recognizing your own accomplishments, is that it's all about choice. So at the end of the day, whether or not you have exercised or not, it's about recognizing yourself for the choices that you've made in that day. Because at the moment that that phone rang, you had a choice. You could either go and choose to exercise and go to your family later, or go to your family now and actually maybe exercise later, albeit maybe at a shorter period of time or not at the intensity that you wanted to, because you simply couldn't after tending to your family. When you reflected on the day and you looked at your choices that you were faced with, and you had the impulse to say, oh, but I didn't satisfy my one key need of wanting to exercise, and so now I'm going to feel a little bit disappointed because I didn't exercise. It's about recognizing yourself for the choices that you made, for recognizing yourself for the fact that you went and tended to your family because that was what was important to you, and therefore recognizing yourself for the accomplishments and the achievements and the things that you did do in your day. Now, why would you want to do that, even if it meant that you didn't exercise? Well, it's because there will be a greater chance that tomorrow you'll set yourself back up with the opportunity to exercise, because you're no longer beating yourself up for what you didn't do. You're instead recognizing yourself for what you did do, for what you did accomplish. And by doing that, you're setting yourself at a better foundation. You're setting yourself at a place of acceptance, at a place of being comfortable within yourself, at a place of, it's okay, tomorrow's a new day, I'm going to do tomorrow differently. Tomorrow I will recognize that if somebody calls me, unless it's absolutely urgent, I'm going to say to them, I will come and see you in an hour's time. Let me just get this done and then I'll come and help you. Because let's face it, unless it's an absolute urgency, an absolute emergency, in an hour's time, they will still be okay. So reiterating, it's about recognizing self for the choices, and that sometimes we do need to compromise, but that's okay. It doesn't mean that you're a failure. Which brings me to my next point, which is there is no failure, there is only feedback. And this is a point that I bring home so strongly on the program. There are no mistakes in life. There is no failure. There is nothing that you could do in a certain moment where if you knew how to do it differently, you wouldn't. So going back to that example of when the phone rang, your family was on the other end asking for your help. If you knew how to do that thing differently in that moment, if you knew how to say to them, "Oh, I'll come to you in an hour," then you simply would have. At that moment in time, you didn't have the resources within you to know how to do that. And for some of you on the call, you've already mastered that strategy of being able to say, "I'll come to you in an hour." So it's easy for you now. But before you grasped that strategy, it was difficult. You didn't know how to say to them, "Yes, but later." So it's about understanding that there are no mistakes, there's only feedback, and about accepting our lessons to learn from our feedback. Now, the trick to this is to understand that if we have a belief within us that there are mistakes in life, that you can get it wrong, and if you are always trying to get it wrong, if you're always trying to get it right, then you will also be looking out for where you went wrong in life. Now, by seeing your life as right and wrong decisions, you actually won't be able to accept the feedback of any of the, in inverted commas, mistakes that you make. So let me go a little bit deeper into this. If you believe that there is only right and wrong, there are only things that you can get right or only things that you can do as mistakes, you simply will not see or take on board the opportunities to learn from your mistakes and see the feedback, because you won't believe that the feedback exists. So when we don't believe that feedback exists, we simply filter it out of our awareness. We have 20 million pieces of information that come into our awareness in every single second, and we can only filter in the information that makes sense to us. So if it doesn't make sense that there is feedback to us about what we could do differently, if we're only seeing where we tripped up and where we made a mistake, then we will not take on board the feedback at all. In fact, we won't even recognize it. We will only see it as a mistake. So what I do on the program is I help the women to see that actually, you know what, there is feedback. And the belief that there are mistakes and that we can be getting it wrong comes from our belief systems that we set up as very young children. All of the belief systems that we have in our life were created from the ages of between 0 and 7. So unless we change those belief systems will stick with us for our entire life. And if part of your upbringing was to say that you do make mistakes or that there are mistakes that can be made in life and that you're either going to get things right or you're going to get things wrong, then you will carry that belief through the rest of your life. And you'll be still looking for that right and wrong today. You'll be looking for where you went right and you'll be looking for where you went wrong. And if you're looking for where you went wrong, then you won't see the feedback, because you'll need to satisfy that belief that you did get it wrong. I hope you understand that, and I hope that that makes sense to you. There is a lot of information behind that belief structure, but ultimately it's about working on yourself to accept that there is no failure and there is only feedback, and that's what part of the program does for the women that I share it with. So this brings us pretty close to the end of the presentation. I want to bring home the point that it's about shifting your mindset, that the three things that I looked at just there, the goal setting, the accepting your choices, and to understand that there is no failure, there is only feedback, are three fundamental shifts in your mindset that will help you to continue to strive to be at your best, to achieve your peak, but also to give yourself a bit of flexibility to know that you can be kind to yourself, to know that you can find an alternative to your plans, to know that you don't need to have that stress in your body that you can create when you don't have that flexibility. So it's about shifting your mindset. By shifting your mindset to have a better sense of flexibility and appreciation and acceptance of yourself, you will feel like you're moving forward. You will feel like you're getting success from now onwards. You'll feel like you're being more proactive every single day. You'll have a greater sense of variety, adventure, and flexibility in your life, and you will much more enjoy the process. And ultimately, you'll start getting results, because no longer will you be creating this stress feeling in your body. You will actually be setting yourself up to enjoy and get the results that you want. So I wonder, what questions have you got? So what have you learned? What have you noticed? And what would you like to share about this presentation? How can I help you further off the back of this call to give you the resources that you need to move forward? What questions have you got? And just type them into the chat box. I'll be very happy to answer them. And just while you're typing in those questions, I'll just let you know how you can get more of this information. So you can sign up for future webinars. I will be running more of these throughout the year. It's something that I've just started off this year. So I'll be taking on board any topics or suggestions of topics that you want to hear about relating to your health and your well-being. You can also like us on the Vitality Fit Facebook page, and you'll get updates about what webinars I've got coming up and what future presentations I've got coming up as well. I'm also just launching my own website. It's called, you'll find it at www.sharoncucciarello-smith.com.au. It's in the process of being finalised. So at the moment, that webpage isn't quite on board, but in the coming days and weeks, you will be able to get information about what I'll be up to on that webpage. You can also register for the mailing list that I'll have live and on board with the webpage. And finally, you can come to a live event, which I plan to run a couple of times throughout the year, where I'll actually be able to do more work with you personally to help you start to embrace this mindset that I talked about today. So talking about setting goals, talking about accepting yourself, talking about allowing yourself to appreciate your choices and having the feedback rather than the failure mindset is all about shifting your mindset. And I don't expect that you will necessarily take that on board just as a result of listening to this webinar, but it starts with awareness. You need to first be aware of what to do in order for you to be able to change it, and that's where the live events come into play. So I'm glad that you've taken a lot. I've got lots of feedback, lots of comments coming in saying that you really enjoyed the webinar, that you gained some really great reminders, some great feedback. It taught you a few things. It brought your awareness to how important your mindset is. So these are all great comments coming in. Thank you so much for your feedback. I really appreciate you talking to me. And I will sign off from here. So have a great day. Make sure you stay cool and drink lots of water. And I will be talking to you again sometime soon. Have a good day. Bye-bye.